So this card, I made the statement that I couldn't do decks with too much male energy in, with a fractured relationship with the divine masculine in my world. I didn't like being confronted with cards like this, not the nudity, but the arrogance of the face. And I made the sweeping statement that this deck, I couldn't do it. I'm returning to that rather bold statement today. Bold and unfair, I think, considering that 98% of decks out there are female energy, goddess energy. There are very few decks that are all male energy or really celebrate the divine masculine, and also unfair because of the fact that I do love this deck. I have no problem with nudity in cards like that. I do feel the male energy in this deck, but having got the deck out to talk about that King of Discs card, I began to flick through this deck again and to reconnect and to realise it is extraordinary. It is an amazing deck, and there are cards that I just adore. So to say I can't do the Mary L because of the masculine energy in it seems unfair, seems sweeping, seems to bring way too much baggage to the party. I acknowledged it was my baggage, but I don't want to leave the baggage sitting there. So it's not the deck, it's this card, and it's not the male energy either. It's the face, it's the arrogance. So I'm going to do some shadow work in real time with you. Now, in my last video with this card, I was triggered because I self-identified with the apple, not as Adam, the God creating the world, leaning against his tree of life that he'd created, with the fruit of that tree that he'd also created, but I was identifying with this apple because at the end of the day, this look on his face is a look that was all too familiar for me, having come out of abuse and family scapegoating. I was used to being toyed with, basically, and I'd been treated as the apple for decades until I escaped. So it was not really surprising that when I saw the look on his face that I self-identified with the apple. Now, in that video, I came to the conclusion that to act honestly and kindly in a world where we all have the capacity to be either very cruel or very kind, that it was actually a weakness to behave like this figure, as I was perceiving this figure was behaving, and it was actually a strength to know that you've got claws but not to use them. We all have light and dark within us, we all have claws, but some of us just choose not to use them. We have integrity and we walk a morality code that is kinder. And at the time I felt like I'd got over this card. I could kind of work with it, seeing that this was an all-powerful God that was toying with this apple, but we all had choices to be kind and to be strong. That still left me in a position where me and the King of Discs were at odds. I'd kind of risen above what I perceived as the arrogance here, but we still weren't friends, me and the King of Discs. He was still far to the left of my moral line, which I think is why the trigger just immediately came rushing back. That shadow work before really helped me to celebrate who I was and am and the path that I wore. It really helped me to grasp a bit of self-worth after abuse, to celebrate the fact that I had claws too, but just knew how to leave them alone and to not use them too often. but the trigger with the card was still there. So I've got it back out and I've pulled a spread. Now what I did is I shuffled the deck a number of times. Once it was shuffled and it felt shuffled enough, I then searched through the deck for the King of Discs to find out where he was, and then I pulled the 3 cards above it and the 3 cards out below it. The ones one side were for the past. So what has caused this trigger to this card in the past? What was the cause of it? 3 cards to describe the cause. And then the other 3 cards were cards for the future, for action moving forward, to get beyond my dislike for the card, to help me heal my relationship with the divine masculine, to heal whatever is in my shadow that needs healing. And then with those cards in front of me, I began to journal. So first of all, we go to the past. What do the 3 cards tell me about where the source is for this trigger? The 3 of Cups reversed. Well, we've got this beautiful card with the 3 waterfalls in. I think this is such a beautiful card, and this card talks about the fact that the most beautiful thing and the most powerful thing a person can do is to find out who they really are, what makes up their waterfall, where should they flow, what's their purpose. To find out who you really are and to follow your own path. This is a card all about reaching your potential. It goes on to say that it's unhealthy and pointless to try to change your nature, to take on another man's path. You end up dry, barren, drained, empty, a lack of friendship or support in relationship. This is a card about self-abandonment in its reversed position. Self-abandonment to try and make another man's path your own, to keep them happy, to run around and please them, to get all your worth from people pleasing. That sounds very much like my past, where I was taught that my feelings, my opinions, my voice, my emotions didn't matter, and to voice them was a very dangerous thing to do. A land left to dry up, like an apple perhaps left to dry up when plucked and toyed with. A person that ends up used and unsupported because they have no purpose, no map, no waterfall of their own to keep their own land fertile. No wonder I felt angry at this card. I felt angry at myself for self-abandoning. And here now, still today, I'm still self-abandoning in the grief of trying to recover from what I went through, plying emotions down with food, not being brave enough to start new relationships. I'm still stuck with no waterfall, and there's a lot of anger at that. And the anger comes from giving away power, turning my waterfall off. The 2 of Cups reversed. This had to come out reversed, didn't it? The 2 of Cups reversed talks about an imbalance in relationships, the battling where unity and teamwork should have existed, connection at the heart not there, crushed spirits in their place, a lack of justice. The King of Discs expression sums up for me this lack of justice if you're self-identifying as the apple. How unfair to be the apple in this situation. And the red and the white is mirrored in these 2 cards to really bring home the point. Is there an imbalance in your relationship? Are you being crushed where connection should be there? Are you about to be devoured in one bite? The scorn in his face looking at the apple is something that I recognise, but I thought, what if I wasn't the apple? What if I was never the apple? My past shadow work had shown me that real power is not using your claws. So my last piece of shadow work with this card had shown me that the true power was to walk in kindness. So what if I was never the apple? What if I was always the God with the power to create my own universe, but I just decided to turn the waterfall off? Self-abandonment and an embracing of imbalance in order to express ferocious or consuming love. This was my imbalance we were talking about. My self-abandoning in order to love. That's what had turned the waterfall off. That's what was making me identify as the goddamn apple. I simply never had learned how to love people without giving my whole self away to oblivion. The third card for the past, the moon. Now for me the moon is always about confusion, not really knowing quite what's going on, and walk in moonlight. And certainly confusion in relationships is a massive red flag for me now. I think that if true communication is there, there should be no confusion. Disagreement, yes, but not confusion. It's also about secrets revealed, enemies exposed, the book claims. And in the past, enemies exposed was certainly my tower moment. And I see the screaming face in this moon card. This face was once mine. The secrets were revealed and the amount of enemies around me were exposed. Enemies that were close family, best friends, lovers. It's a shocking place to be. But the book goes on to say, remember, everybody is a moon and has a dark side which he never shows to anybody. So again, we've got that reminder that that dark side is in all of us, the ability to confuse others as well as be confused ourselves. Again, a reminder of power. So I was sat thinking of the anger at my own self-abandonment for handing my pen to somebody else to stop writing my own story and to make theirs all important, to accept an imbalance of power in a relationship and to say that yes, I'll just do anything to keep you happy, but then to get the whole tower come crashing down as enemies are revealed and secrets are told, even when you've allowed your waterfall to cease. It doesn't guarantee anything giving yourself away completely. Loving others so much that you disappear into oblivion doesn't guarantee love's return. These cards do speak of an imbalance of power that only these white fluffy trousers can rectify. I realised I needed to stop being the damn apple and to get those white trousers on to embody the King of Discs. The King of Discs, whose message in the book says, a heaven or hell of your own making. Your life is your criteria and kingdom, and you are the whole thing. Basically, pick up your pen and start writing. Turn your waterfall back on. Follow your own dreams. Have your own ideas. Take responsibility for your own happiness, your own world, your own universe. You are in charge of creating it all. And when you do, you can pluck whatever apple you want. You can bite it and bring everything crashing down and start again, or you can toy with it and just lick it. These 3 cards made me realise that the imbalance here could be balanced by the King of Discs energy. I didn't need to reject this divine masculine energy. I needed to cloak myself in it. This isn't a mocking card. This is a call to action. So what call to action? Let's look at the 3 cards, the future cards. First of all, the 5 of Wands. Look at that fiery energy that screams power there, an energy in the woods. The book says this is your purpose, your direction, your will and your life, a life of its own, individuality, direction, force and determination. Even this card talks about owning your direction, your life purpose, your life passions, your dreams. This card talks about a life force capable of creating an apple, a tree, a whole damn universe. It is a call to step into power. Step into a power that can make a tree of life, that can reach out and pick the apples on it and decide if it wants to take a lick, toss the apple away or bite into it. This is a card that screams that the world is bigger than you just being an apple, where you're allowed to be more, to do more, to say more, to have more. You are not just an apple. You are not somebody's plaything. This card is your green light to be it all. Then the 10 of Cups. The 10 of Cups, the happy family card. Of course it had to be in there. But we have skeletal figures riding a red horse. A horse that represents the heart and heart's blood and the heartbeat of life. And it's a card that reminds us to seize the day. Carpe diem. Says remember to live. Turn your waterfall on. The red blood horse and the red blood apple. Remember to live. Has this been the King of Discs message to me all along? Pick up your pen. Carpe diem. Remember to live. And then the Ace of Swords, which was reversed, which means foggy, unclear thinking, which kind of mirrors the moon from the other side of the reading. Foggy thinking, so get clear. Step away from the moon thinking of your past. Keep your thoughts about your dreams and your life, your waterfall, active. Keep them clear and remember truth. Remember you are the whole world, the orchard, the tree and the apple. The truth here is I was never the apple. Never the apple. I just put my pen down and had stopped writing. And now I think I can truly say my relationship with the King of Discs is truly healed. I feel more connected to the divine masculine within me, because we all have feminine and masculine energy flowing through us. I think my passive codependency days, where I loved people at the detriment of my own life, kind of made me shy away from accepting any power, any responsibility. It was always about somebody else's story. But this shadow work spread has taught me to embrace power, to embrace that feeling of the divine masculine, of world creating, of being the person picking the apple, not being the apple. I always struggled with the fact that my birth card is the Emperor. I was really upset at one point about it. Now, having done this shadow work spread, I can embrace the fact that my birth card is the Emperor. Having had a lifetime being punished for embracing my own power or ever having my own opinion, it is really healing to integrate the Emperor part of me that says I can and will create my own world. Finally, I pulled some cards from the Reclaim Oracle, which for me, the Reclaim Oracle is like a emotion wheel in a deck. And I think when you come from trauma or any sort of abusive background or just living really, sometimes we forget how to name our emotions. I know that codependents in particular can name only a few without work. I used to be able to name happiness, sadness, boredom, anger, and that was about it. But the nuances in between I found difficult, and I worked with emotion wheels for a long time, and I did a 100-day art project around this, which I keep meaning to share. One day I will. But the Reclaim Oracle for me feels like an emotion wheel in a deck. So I decided to pull 3 cards around this one after this work. The first one I pulled was Connection. And I love the fact that this almost looks like a waterfall coming over the cliff. Connection with your own power, your own ability to turn your own waterfall on. The second card I pulled was Security, grounding yourself. I love the roots on these flowers. Feeling secure in who you are, learning to put boundaries up and being secure enough to claim your own voice and your own purpose. To say no when imbalance is taking advantage. And finally, I pulled Freedom. And I love this. I love these 2 figures. I almost feel like this is myself holding my shadow's hand and saying, let's integrate this now. I loved that. To finish off, I decided to see what the underlying emotion for everything was. And oh boy, look at this card. I pulled Release. Release from all of these triggers and this big area of my life that was stopping me from trusting, stopping me from wanting more relationships. It was a massive wall that I feel I brought down over the week working with this deck. But lastly, I had to laugh because of course Atom, who's depicted in this card, is the first creator god who did a sex act on himself and then spat his semen into the universe, into the sky, to create the whole universe, which first formed as the tree. He created everything. And look at this card. If that doesn't remind you of Atom's story with spitting semen into the universe and saying, world, here I come, ready to create my own dreams, I don't know what does. It made me roar with laughter when I pulled it, and I loved it. So, shadow work in real time, embracing masculine energy, embracing my own power, realizing that the anger I felt shouldn't be aimed at the masculine, but more my refusal to become responsible for my own waterfall, anger at my self-abandonment, ways forward, to seize the day, to keep my thinking clear, and to remain determined to personify my own individual path rather than somebody else's. So guys, I hope that was interesting. I hope it might have been useful. How do I use tarot for shadow work? That was shadow work in real time, shared just so that you can see. It might be that if you find a card like this one that is just so triggering, you can't get past it, again, that might be the right deck for you. It might be that you do a shuffle and pull cards either side like you saw me do. It's just a really good way of having a conversation with this card and delving deep. If you don't have a deck like the Reclaim Oracle, online there are loads of resources for emotion wheels to identify emotions around what you're feeling. That can be really useful too. And of course, the good old journaling. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.